Welcome back to the channel. It begins with the faint clink of a tiny coin dropping onto a wooden table, the kind of ordinary sound most people ignore every single day. Yet, in that simple moment, there could be a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered because somewhere among billions of everyday coins lies a mysterious 1967 one dime from the United States that collectors believe could be worth an astonishing $37 million. A number so unbelievable that most people would laugh at. The idea of a 10-cent coin being worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, or entire businesses. But the history of coin collecting has proven time and time again that the smallest pieces of metal can carry the biggest surprises. And what makes the story of the 1967 dime so fascinating is that it comes from one of the most chaotic and unusual periods in American coin history. A time when the United States Mint was racing against demand, experimenting with new metal compositions, and quietly changing the way coins were produced across the country. And during this era, billions of dimes were minted and released into circulation, filling cash registers, piggy banks, and pocket change across the nation. Yet, hidden somewhere within that enormous flood of coins, experts believe a handful of extremely rare variations may exist. Coins created during unusual minting circumstances that could turn a simple dime into a legendary collectible worth unimaginable money. And the reason collectors whisper about the possibility of a 1967 dime reaching $37 million in value begins with a dramatic change that happened just 2 years earlier when the United States government removed silver from most circulating coins, because rising metal prices were causing people to hoard older silver coins. So beginning in 1965, the Mint introduced copper nickel-clad coins instead. And this massive transition forced the Mint to rush production at an incredible pace, creating the perfect environment for rare minting anomalies, experimental strikes, and unusual planchet errors to occur. And in order to discourage coin collectors from pulling new coins out of circulation, the Mint made a controversial decision that would add even more mystery to the 1967 dime. They temporarily removed mint marks from coins produced between 1965 and 1967, meaning that unlike most other years, the coins did not reveal which mint facility produced them, a change that made it nearly impossible for collectors to instantly identify rare production runs. And this decision accidentally created one of the most intriguing treasure hunts in modern numismatics, because any 1967 dime could theoretically be something special, and that possibility keeps collectors searching through jars of spare change, inherited collections, and bank rolls of coins, hoping to spot the subtle details that separate a common dime from a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Because sometimes the difference between 10 cents and millions of dollars can be a tiny minting mistake almost invisible to the naked eye. And those mistakes happen more often than most people realize, because coins are produced in massive quantities using high-speed machines that strike metal blanks thousands of times every hour. And when something unusual happens during that process, the result can be a rare coin that escapes into circulation unnoticed, waiting decades before someone finally recognizes what it truly is. And one of the most exciting possibilities surrounding the 1967 dime is the chance that a few coins may have been accidentally struck on the wrong type of metal blank known as a planchet, which can happen when blanks intended for other denominations become mixed into the production line. And if a dime were struck on a planchet meant for a different coin, it could have a completely different weight or metal composition, instantly turning it into a rare mint error worth an extraordinary amount of money to collectors. And during the transition years of the mid-1960s, when the Mint was experimenting with materials and adjusting production methods, the chances of unusual strikes were higher than normal, which is why collectors remain fascinated with coins from this era, because they know that hidden rarities may still exist undiscovered. And history has already proven that coins once considered ordinary can later become legendary treasures after a rare example surfaces and shocks the collecting world. And one famous example is the legendary 1894 Barber dime, a coin so rare that fewer than 10 examples are known today, and one sold for nearly $2 million, proving that a tiny dime can indeed become one of the most valuable coins in existence when rarity meets demand. And this historical precedent is exactly what fuels the excitement surrounding the 1967 dime, because if a unique error or experimental strike from that year were ever discovered, it could easily ignite a bidding war among wealthy collectors, museums, and investors determined to own a one-of-a-kind piece of history. And when collectors compete for something that may never appear again, the value can skyrocket to unbelievable levels, which is why the idea of a $37 million dime is not as impossible as it sounds in the world of rare coins, where historical significance, rarity, and condition combine to create astonishing prices at auction. And the most incredible part of this story is that such a coin might still be out there right now, hiding in plain sight, because dimes are among the most overlooked coins in everyday circulation, rarely examined closely by the people who use them, which means a rare example could easily pass through thousands of hands without anyone realizing its true importance. And that thought alone has inspired a growing wave of treasure hunters who now check every dime they receive, studying the details of the design, the clarity of the lettering, and the alignment of the images, searching for anything unusual that might signal a valuable error. And the front of the coin features the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a design introduced in 1946 to honor the president who helped lead the United States through the Great Depression and World War II, and who also supported the March of Dimes campaign to fight polio. While the reverse side displays a torch representing liberty surrounded by olive and oak branches symbolizing peace and strength. A design that has become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Yet even within this familiar design, small variations can reveal something extraordinary, because sometimes the letters appear doubled due to a rare die error. Sometimes the strike is slightly off-center, creating a dramatic visual shift, and sometimes the metal itself reveals that the coin was struck on a completely different blank than intended. Each of these possibilities turning a common coin into a collector's dream, and collectors often use magnifying tools and precision scales to examine their coins, because weight differences or unusual textures can indicate that a coin was struck on an experimental planchet or an incorrect metal blank. And if such a discovery were confirmed by professional grading experts, it could instantly become one of the most important coin finds of the century, attracting global attention and potentially reaching a value that few people would have believed possible for a simple dime. And this is exactly why coin collectors encourage everyone to look carefully at the coins they already have, because rare discoveries rarely appear in obvious places. They hide quietly in forgotten jars, old piggy banks, inherited collections, and the spare change people carry every day. And sometimes a life-changing discovery begins with nothing more than curiosity and a closer look at something most people overlook. And the idea that a $37 million coin could be hiding among ordinary pocket change is enough to spark the imagination of anyone who hears the story, because it reminds us that extraordinary treasures sometimes exist in the most ordinary forms. And perhaps somewhere right now a small 1967 dime sits quietly at the bottom of a coin jar or rests unnoticed inside a wallet, waiting for the moment when someone finally pauses long enough to examine it carefully and realize they might be holding one of the rarest coins ever created. And if that moment ever happens, it could become one of the most unforgettable discoveries in the history of coin collecting, the kind of story that spreads across the world and inspires millions of people to start checking their own coins just in case another hidden treasure is waiting to be found. And if stories like this make you curious about the incredible secrets that might be hiding inside everyday pocket change, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more unbelievable coin discoveries that could inspire your own treasure hunt before the next $1 million coin disappears back into circulation. Next, 1980 P1 dime USA coin. It begins with a moment so ordinary that most people would never imagine it could hide a life-changing discovery. the quiet sound of coins shifting inside a pocket or a jar on a kitchen shelf, the kind of everyday sound that happens millions of times every single day. Yet hidden within those small metallic echoes could be a fortune beyond imagination, because somewhere among the countless coins that pass through hands, wallets, and cash registers every day there exists the mysterious possibility of a 1980p one dime from the United States that collectors believe could be worth as much as $27 million, an amount so shocking that it seems impossible for a coin with a face value of only 10 cents. But the world of rare coins has always been full of unbelievable surprises where tiny pieces of metal become legendary treasures simply because of rarity, history, and the strange circumstances under which they were created. And the story of the 1980p dime is one of those fascinating mysteries that has captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters everywhere, because it reminds people that hidden fortunes can sometimes exist in the most ordinary places. Places like a dusty coin jar forgotten in the corner of a room, an old piggy bank that has not been opened for years, or even the handful of change someone receives after buying a cup of coffee. And what makes this particular dime so intriguing begins with the year itself. 1980, a time when the United States Mint was producing massive numbers of coins to keep the economy running smoothly, striking millions upon millions of dimes in facilities across the country, including the Philadelphia Mint, which used the small letter P mint mark to identify coins made there. Yet even with such enormous production numbers, history has shown that mistakes, rare variations, and extraordinary minting anomalies can still appear, slipping quietly into circulation unnoticed for decades until someone with a careful eye finally recognizes something unusual. And that is exactly why collectors pay such close attention to coins like the 1980p dime, because every rare coin ever discovered once began as an ordinary piece of change that someone almost overlooked. And sometimes the difference between a coin worth 10 cents and one worth millions can come down to a tiny detail barely visible to the naked eye. A slight doubling in the letters, a subtle shift in the strike, an unusual metal composition, or a planchet error where a coin was struck on the wrong type of blank, each of these possibilities turning an everyday coin into a legendary collectible. And the idea that a 1980p dime could reach a value of $27 million comes from the incredible power of rarity combined with historical importance and collector demand. Because in the world of numismatics, when something truly unique appears, the competition among collectors can become intense, sometimes leading to astonishing auction prices that shock the public and make headlines around the world. And the history of coin collecting is filled with examples that prove this is not just a fantasy. There are coins smaller than a fingernail that have sold for millions simply because only a handful exist, and sometimes because only a single example has ever been discovered. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching through coins day after day, hoping to uncover the next great treasure. And with the 1980p dime, the excitement comes from several mysterious possibilities that experts often discuss when evaluating coins from this era, one of the most fascinating being the chance that a rare minting error occurred during production. Because coins are created by high-speed presses striking metal blanks thousands of times every hour, and during that intense process unusual events can happen. A die may become slightly misaligned, a blank intended for another coin might enter the press, or the design may strike imperfectly, creating an error that instantly makes the coin unique. And if such an error were discovered on a 1980p dime in near-perfect condition, it could become one of the most valuable coins ever found, attracting attention from collectors across the globe who would eagerly compete to own such a rare piece of American history. And another factor that makes this coin so fascinating is the possibility of a wrong planchet strike, a situation where the dime design is accidentally stamped onto a blank meant for another denomination or even another type of coin entirely, creating a hybrid that should never have existed. And coins like that are among the most sought-after treasures in the collecting world because they represent a moment when the minting process briefly went off script, producing something that was never intended to be created. And the rarity of such an event can drive collectors into bidding wars where the price climbs higher and higher until it reaches levels that seem unbelievable to anyone outside the hobby. Yet those who understand the importance of unique mint errors know that owning such a coin is like owning a piece of history that can never be duplicated. And stories like these are exactly why people across the world have started looking more carefully at their spare change. Because the truth is that rare coins are sometimes discovered in the most unexpected places, from jars of coins inherited from grandparents to rolls of change purchased from banks by curious collectors hoping to find something unusual, and every once in a while someone does discover a coin that changes their life forever, a moment when an ordinary object suddenly reveals extraordinary value. And those stories spread quickly through the coin collecting community, inspiring even more people to start searching their own coins. Because the possibility of discovering a hidden treasure is simply too exciting to ignore. And the design of the 1980p dime itself carries a deep historical meaning, featuring the portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front, a tribute to the leader who guided the United States through some of the most difficult years in its history, and who also supported the March of Dimes campaign dedicated to fighting polio, while the reverse side displays a powerful symbol of American ideals. A torch representing liberty flanked by olive and oak branches symbolizing peace and strength. And for decades this design has remained one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Yet even within this familiar design, collectors know that small differences can reveal extraordinary secrets. A slight doubling of the letters in the motto, a shift in the alignment of the torch, or a faint extra outline around Roosevelt's profile can indicate that something unusual happened during the minting process. And those tiny clues are exactly what treasure hunters look for when they examine coins under magnification, because sometimes the smallest detail can turn an ordinary dime into a coin worth a fortune, and condition plays a major role as well, because collectors place enormous value on coins that remain in near-perfect shape after decades of existence, coins that somehow avoided the scratches, wear, and damage that most circulating coins experience. And when a rare mint error combines with exceptional condition, the result can be a coin so desirable that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts to secure it for their collections. Which is why the idea of a 1980p dime reaching a value of $27 million continues to capture attention. Because if a truly unique example were ever discovered, it would instantly become one of the most famous coins in the world, the kind of discovery that appears in headlines and sparks a global wave of curiosity as people rush to check their own coins hoping they might possess something similar. And what makes this story even more exciting is the fact that dimes are among the most commonly overlooked coins in circulation, often spent without a second glance because of their small size and modest value, meaning a rare example could potentially move from one person to another countless times before anyone realizes its importance, quietly traveling through wallets, vending machines, and cash registers for years, until finally someone pauses long enough to examine it closely. And that moment of recognition could transform an ordinary day into the beginning of an incredible discovery story that collectors would talk about for decades. And this possibility is exactly what drives the passion of coin hunters, who patiently search through thousands of coins hoping to uncover something special, because they know that history has already proven such discoveries are possible, and every legendary coin ever found was once hidden somewhere waiting to be noticed. And perhaps right now somewhere in the world a small 1980p dime sits quietly in a jar of spare change or lies forgotten in an old drawer, completely unnoticed yet potentially worth a fortune if its rare characteristics are finally recognized. And the thought that such a treasure might still exist in everyday circulation continues to inspire curiosity and excitement among people who once ignored the coins in their pockets, but now see them in a completely different way, as tiny pieces of history that might hold secrets waiting to be discovered. And that is why experts often remind people to take a closer look at their coins before spending them, because the next great discovery could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize it. And if stories like this spark your curiosity about the hidden treasures that might exist inside everyday pocket change, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible coin stories, because the next $1 million discovery might already be sitting in your pocket right now just waiting to be found. Next, 1987 D1 dime USA coin. It begins with a simple moment that most people experience every day without giving it a second thought: the quiet sound of loose change being dropped onto a table after a long day, a handful of coins sliding across the surface, ordinary objects that most people assume are worth only their face value. Yet hidden among billions of everyday coins circulating across the United States, there is a mysterious possibility that one tiny coin, a 1987 D1 dime, could secretly be worth an astonishing $25 million. And the idea that a coin with a face value of only 10 cents could reach such an unbelievable amount may sound impossible at first, but the history of coin collecting has repeatedly proven that the smallest coins can sometimes become the most valuable treasures when rarity, minting errors, historical importance, and collector demand collide in just the right way. And that is exactly why the story of the 1987 D dime continues to fascinate collectors, treasure hunters, and ordinary people who have started looking at their pocket change with completely new curiosity, because somewhere out there a coin that looks perfectly normal could actually be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery waiting to be recognized. And the excitement surrounding this coin begins with the year 1987. A time when the United States Mint was producing enormous numbers of coins to meet the needs of everyday commerce. And among those coins were millions of Roosevelt dimes struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D placed near the date on the front of the coin. Yet even though the production numbers were huge, history has shown again and again that rare and extraordinary minting anomalies can still occur even during large production runs. And when they do, those unusual coins can escape into circulation unnoticed, quietly traveling through the economy for years, or even decades before someone finally notices something unusual about them. And this is exactly how many of the world's most valuable coins were discovered, not inside secure vaults or museum collections, but in ordinary places like jars of spare change, inherited coin boxes, and sometimes even in the loose coins returned as change from a store purchase. And what makes the 1987 D dime so intriguing is the possibility that a rare error or unusual minting event may have occurred during its production, something so uncommon that only a handful of examples might exist. And if one of those coins were ever discovered in near-perfect condition, it could instantly become one of the most valuable modern coins in the world, potentially reaching a value of $25 million due to the intense competition among collectors who dream of owning something truly unique. And to understand why such a small coin could command such an enormous price, it helps to understand how coins are made. Because every coin begins as a small metal blank called a planchet, which is fed into a powerful press where engraved dies strike the design onto the metal with tremendous force. And these machines operate at extremely high speeds, producing thousands of coins every hour. Yet even with careful quality control, there are moments when something unusual happens during the minting process. A die may shift slightly out of alignment. A blank intended for another denomination may accidentally enter the press, or the metal composition may differ from what was intended. And when these unusual situations occur, the result can be a rare mint error coin that collectors eagerly seek because it represents a moment when the minting process briefly produced something completely unexpected. And those rare errors are often the coins that later become legendary among collectors, especially when only a few examples are known to exist. And in the case of the 1987 D dime, collectors speculate about several possibilities that could transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure, one of the most exciting being the chance that a dime design may have been struck on the wrong type of planchet, which can happen when blanks meant for other coins become mixed into the production line, creating a coin that has the design of one denomination but the weight or metal composition of another. And coins like that are incredibly rare and highly prized because they should never have existed in the first place, making them fascinating pieces of minting history that collectors compete fiercely to own. And if such a wrong planchet error were ever discovered on a 1987 D dime, it could attract worldwide attention from collectors, museums, and investors who understand how rare such a discovery would be, potentially pushing its value into the tens of millions of dollars if it proved to be truly unique. And another possibility involves double die errors, a rare situation where the design on the die itself is duplicated slightly during the manufacturing process, causing letters or numbers on the finished coin to appear doubled or slightly blurred. And these errors can sometimes be difficult to notice without magnification, which means they can circulate unnoticed for years before someone carefully examines the coin and realizes that it contains a rare variation. And collectors who search for these details often use magnifying glasses or microscopes to study the lettering on coins, especially the date and the motto phrases, because those areas are where doubled dies are often most visible. And when a genuine double die coin is discovered, it can become extremely valuable depending on its rarity and condition, especially if it comes from a year that collectors already find interesting. And the 1987 D dime is particularly intriguing because coins from the late 20th century are still young enough that many examples remain in circulation, meaning a rare coin from that year could theoretically still be hiding in plain sight among ordinary pocket change, passing from one person to another without anyone realizing its significance. And that possibility has inspired countless people to start checking their coins more carefully, turning everyday change into a potential treasure hunt. And the design of the 1987 D dime itself carries a powerful connection to American history, featuring the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front of the coin, a tribute to the leader who guided the United States through the challenges of the Great Depression and World War II, and who also supported the March of Dimes campaign to combat polio, while the reverse side displays a symbolic torch representing liberty flanked by olive and oak branches symbolizing peace and strength, a design that has appeared on American dimes for decades and remains one of the most recognizable images in U.S. coinage. Yet even within this familiar design, collectors know that tiny variations can reveal something extraordinary, because sometimes the letters appear slightly shifted, sometimes the strike is off-center creating a dramatic misalignment, and sometimes the metal itself reveals that the coin was struck under unusual circumstances, each of these possibilities turning a coin that most people would ignore into a collector's dream. And condition also plays a crucial role in determining a coin's value, because collectors prize coins that remain in exceptional shape after many years, coins that show almost no signs of wear and still display their original mint luster. And when a rare error coin is discovered in such pristine condition, the value can rise dramatically because collectors know they may never see another example like it again. And this combination of rarity and preservation is exactly what can drive auction prices to astonishing levels when collectors compete to secure a unique piece of history. And the world of coin collecting has already seen many examples where coins smaller than a fingernail have sold for millions simply because they are so rare that only a few exist, proving that value in this hobby is not about size or face value, but about uniqueness and historical significance. And this is why the possibility of a 1987 D dime worth $25 million continues to spark excitement and curiosity. Because if such a coin were ever discovered, it would instantly become one of the most famous modern coins ever found, drawing attention from collectors around the world and inspiring countless people to search their own coins just in case another rare example might still be out there waiting to be discovered. And perhaps somewhere at this very moment a small silver-colored coin sits quietly at the bottom of a jar of spare change, overlooked for years yet potentially hiding a remarkable secret that could transform it from an ordinary dime into a treasure worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. And the only way such a discovery can happen is if someone decides to look more closely at the coins they already have, because history has shown that many of the greatest coin discoveries began with nothing more than curiosity and a careful glance at something that most people would have ignored. And that is why stories like this continue to inspire people across the world to check their pocket change before spending it, because the next legendary discovery might already be sitting in someone's hand right now waiting to be recognized. And if stories about hidden coin treasures like this capture your imagination and make you wonder whether a fortune could be hiding in your own pocket change, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible coin discoveries, because the next multi-million-dollar coin might be closer than you ever imagined. Next, 2001 dime USA coin. It begins with a quiet moment that feels completely ordinary, the simple act of emptying your pockets at the end of a long day, coin sliding across a table with a faint metallic sound that most people barely notice. Yet hidden within that small pile of everyday change there could be a secret that almost no one expects. Because somewhere among the countless coins circulating across the United States, there exists the mysterious possibility of a 2001 dime that collectors believe could be worth an astonishing $15 million, and the idea that a coin with a face value of only 10 cents could carry such an unbelievable price might sound like a myth. Yet the history of rare coin discoveries has repeatedly shown that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary objects. And what makes this story so fascinating is that coins like the 2000 dime are still relatively modern, meaning they continue to move through everyday transactions, quietly passing from one person to another without anyone realizing that one tiny difference could transform a common coin into a treasure worth more than most houses or luxury cars. And the year 2000 itself was a remarkable time for American coinage, because the United States Mint was entering a new era of public interest in coins, with the success of the State Quarters program bringing millions of new collectors into the hobby. And while most attention during that time focused on quarters, the Mint was also producing huge quantities of other coins, including the Roosevelt dime, a design that has been part of American currency since 1946, when it was introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his connection to the March of Dimes campaign that helped fight polio. And by the year 2000, the dime had become one of the most widely used coins in the country, produced in enormous numbers by mints such as Denver, which marked its coins with the small letter D near the date. Yet even with all that experience and modern technology, the process of minting coins can still produce rare and unexpected results, because coins are created by striking metal blanks called planchets with tremendous pressure using engraved dies that imprint the design onto the metal, and these machines work at incredible speeds, producing thousands of coins every hour, meaning that even the smallest variation in alignment, pressure, or material can sometimes create a coin that is completely unique. And those unusual coins are exactly what collectors spend years searching for, because they represent rare moments when the minting process produced something that was never intended to exist. And when a coin like that escapes into circulation unnoticed, it can remain hidden for years before someone finally recognizes its unusual features. And that is how many of the world's most valuable coins have been discovered. Not in vaults or museums, but in ordinary places, like jars of spare change, bank coin rolls, inherited collections, and sometimes even the change received after a routine purchase at a store. And the idea that a 2000 dime could reach a value of $15 million comes from the possibility that an extremely rare minting error or unique variation might exist from that year, something so unusual that only one or two examples may have been produced. And if such a coin were ever discovered in exceptional condition, it could ignite intense competition among collectors who dream of owning a truly one-of-a-kind piece of numismatic history. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything, because when a coin is known to exist in only a few examples, collectors will go to extraordinary lengths to acquire it, often bidding far beyond what most people would consider reasonable, simply because they know that once the opportunity disappears, it may never appear again. And this intense competition is what has pushed the prices of certain rare coins into the millions of dollars, transforming small pieces of metal into legendary treasures that capture the imagination of people around the world. And the 2000D dime becomes especially interesting when collectors consider the possibility of wrong planchet errors, a situation where the design of a dime is accidentally struck onto a metal blank intended for another type of coin, creating a hybrid that should never have existed. And coins like that are among the most fascinating mint errors because they reveal a brief moment when the production process went off track, allowing a completely unexpected coin to be created. And if such an error occurred during the minting of a 2000D dime, it could produce a coin with unusual weight, color, or thickness that immediately stands out when examined closely. And collectors often use precise scales and magnification tools to study coins for exactly these kinds of anomalies, because the smallest difference can indicate that a coin is far more special than it appears at first glance. And another possibility involves doubled dies, a rare situation where the die used to strike the coin carries a slightly duplicated design due to a misalignment during its creation, causing the final coin to display doubled letters or numbers that look slightly blurred or shadowed. And these doubled features can sometimes be subtle enough to escape notice for years, meaning a valuable coin could circulate through countless hands before someone finally identifies it. And that thought alone has inspired thousands of people to begin checking their coins more carefully, turning ordinary spare change into an exciting treasure hunt that anyone can participate in. And the design of the 2000D dime itself remains one of the most recognizable in American currency, with the front of the coin displaying the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt facing left, a symbol of leadership during some of the most difficult periods in American history, while the reverse side features a powerful combination of symbols including a torch representing liberty, an olive branch representing peace, and an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence, a design that has remained largely unchanged for decades and has become deeply familiar to generations of Americans. Yet within that familiar design, collectors know that tiny variations can reveal extraordinary secrets, because a small shift in alignment or an unusual impression in the lettering can indicate that something unexpected happened during the minting process. And when such variations are confirmed by professional grading services, they can transform an ordinary coin into one of the most sought-after collectibles in the world, especially when the coin has remained in excellent condition without significant wear, because collectors place enormous importance on preservation and original mint luster. And when rarity and condition combine in a single coin, the resulting value can climb dramatically, sometimes reaching levels that astonish even experienced collectors. And this is why the story of a 2000D dime potentially worth $15 million continues to capture attention across the coin collecting community and beyond, because it reminds people that hidden treasures are not always buried underground or locked away in ancient vaults. Sometimes they exist in the simplest and most overlooked forms imaginable, quietly waiting for someone curious enough to notice them. And perhaps somewhere right now, a small dime minted in the year 2000 is resting unnoticed in a jar of spare change, completely overlooked by the people who have handled it over the years, yet potentially hiding a rare feature that could make it one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. And if that moment of discovery ever happens, it could instantly become one of the most exciting stories in modern numismatics. The kind of discovery that spreads across the world and inspires millions of people to check their own coins just in case another hidden treasure might still be waiting to be found. And the only way such discoveries happen is when someone decides to take a closer look at something most people ignore, because every legendary coin ever found began its journey as an ordinary object that someone finally examined carefully enough to recognize its true significance. And that possibility continues to inspire collectors and treasure hunters everywhere to keep searching through coins day after day, knowing that the next extraordinary discovery could appear at any moment. And if stories like this make you curious about the incredible secrets that might be hiding inside everyday pocket change, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing coin discoveries, because the next multi-million-dollar treasure might already be sitting in your pocket right now just waiting to be discovered. Next, 1963 1-dime USA coin. It begins with the faint metallic sound of a tiny coin falling onto a wooden table, a sound so ordinary that most people would never stop to think about it. Yet hidden inside that simple moment could be the beginning of a story worth $41 million, because somewhere among the billions of coins that have passed through pockets, purses, and cash registers over the decades, there exists the possibility of a mysterious 1963 1-dime from the United States that collectors believe could reach an astonishing value of $41 million. And the idea that a coin with a face value of just 10 cents could be worth more than luxury mansions or entire businesses seems unbelievable at first. But the fascinating world of rare coin collecting has proven many times that the smallest pieces of metal can sometimes become the most valuable treasures in history when rarity, condition, and historical significance come together in the right way. And the story of the 1963 dime begins in a very different time in America, a period when silver coins were still part of everyday life and millions of people carried them in their pockets without realizing they were holding pieces of precious metal. Because before 1965, American dimes were made primarily from 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them a beautiful shine and a solid feel that collectors today still admire. And the year 1963 sits right at the edge of a dramatic turning point in U.S. coin history, because only 2 years later the government would remove silver from circulating dimes due to rising metal prices, meaning the silver dimes produced before that change suddenly became part of a disappearing era. And that alone already gives coins like the 1963 dime a special place in numismatic history. Yet, what makes the story truly exciting is the possibility that certain rare versions of this coin may exist that are far more valuable than ordinary examples, coins created during unusual minting circumstances that could transform a simple dime into one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. And when collectors talk about a 1963 dime reaching a value of $41 million, they are usually imagining a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and minting mystery. Because coins are produced using powerful presses that strike engraved designs onto metal blanks called planchets. And although the process is carefully controlled, it operates at incredible speeds, with thousands of coins produced every hour, meaning that occasionally something unusual can happen during production. A die might shift slightly, a blank intended for a different coin might enter the press, or the metal composition might vary unexpectedly. And when those rare moments occur, the result can be a mint error coin that collectors treasure because it represents a brief moment when the minting process created something completely unexpected, and the rarity of such events means that sometimes only a few examples exist in the entire world, and if a coin like that survives in exceptional condition, collectors will compete fiercely to obtain it, pushing its value higher and higher as auctions unfold. And history has already shown that coins smaller than a fingernail can sell for millions simply because they are unique pieces of history. And that is exactly why the possibility of a 1963 dime worth $41 million continues to capture attention across the collecting community. Because if such a coin were ever discovered, it could instantly become one of the most famous coins in existence. And one of the reasons collectors pay special attention to the 1963 dime is the fact that it was minted in a year when the United States was producing enormous quantities of silver coinage, just before the major transition away from precious metals. And during times of heavy production, the chances of unusual mint errors can increase because machines are operating continuously at high speed, creating the perfect conditions for rare anomalies to slip through unnoticed. And one of the most fascinating possibilities involves the idea of a wrong planchet error, where a coin design is accidentally struck onto a blank mint for another denomination, creating a hybrid coin that should never have existed in the first place. And coins like that are among the most valuable in the collecting world because they represent a moment when the minting process briefly produced something completely unintended, And if such an event occurred with a 1963 dime, it could create a coin with unusual weight, size, or color that immediately stands out to experts examining it carefully. And another possibility involves doubled dies, a rare situation where the die used to strike the coin contains a slightly duplicated image caused by misalignment during its creation, leading to letters or numbers that appear doubled or slightly blurred on the final coin. And these doubled features can sometimes be subtle enough to escape notice for years, allowing the coin to circulate quietly until someone finally studies it under magnification and realizes they have discovered something extraordinary. And collectors who search for these details often use magnifying glasses and precise measuring tools to examine coins carefully, checking the date, the lettering, and the design elements for anything unusual that might reveal a rare variation, because sometimes the difference between an ordinary dime and a multi-million-dollar treasure can be as small as a tiny shift in the alignment of a letter. And the design of the 1963 dime itself carries deep historical meaning because it features the portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front of the coin, a tribute introduced in 1946 shortly after Roosevelt's death to honor his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, and his strong support for the March of Dimes campaign dedicated to fighting polio. And the reverse side of the coin display is a powerful symbol of American ideals, with a torch representing liberty placed between an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch symbolizing strength. And for decades, this design has remained one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Yet, within that familiar design, collectors know that tiny variations can reveal something remarkable. Because sometimes the strike may be slightly off-center, sometimes the letters may show doubling, and sometimes the metal itself may reveal a rare composition difference. And when such unusual features appear on a coin that has remained in excellent condition, the result can be a collectible so desirable that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts to secure it, especially when the coin represents a piece of history from the final years of silver coinage in the United States. And this combination of rarity, precious metal content, historical importance, and exceptional preservation is exactly what can drive prices into the tens of millions when wealthy collectors compete to add a legendary coin to their collections. And the excitement surrounding coins, like the 1963 dime, has inspired people around the world to start looking more closely at their spare change, because rare coins have been discovered in the most unexpected places, including old jars of coins stored in attics, inherited collections passed down through generations, and even ordinary rolls of coins purchased from banks by curious collectors hoping to find something unusual. And every once in a while those searches lead to incredible discoveries that remind everyone how easily hidden treasures can remain unnoticed for decades, quietly traveling through circulation until someone finally recognizes their significance. And that possibility is what makes the story of the 1963 dime so exciting, because even though the chances of finding such a rare coin are extremely small, the thought that a life-changing treasure could be hiding in plain sight is enough to inspire curiosity in anyone who hears the story. And perhaps somewhere right now a small silver dime minted in 1963 sits quietly at the bottom of a forgotten coin jar, or rests unnoticed in an old collection, completely overlooked yet potentially worth a fortune if its rare characteristics are finally discovered and confirmed by experts. And if that moment ever happens, it could become one of the most remarkable coin discovery stories in modern history, a discovery that spreads across the world and inspires millions of people to start checking their own coins just in case another hidden treasure might still be waiting to be found. And that is why collectors always remind people never to underestimate the coins they already have, because history has shown again and again that extraordinary discoveries often begin with something as simple as taking a closer look at an ordinary piece of change. It begins with the quiet curiosity of someone deciding not to spend a small coin immediately, but instead turning it slowly between their fingers, noticing the shine, the date, the tiny details that most people overlook, And in that simple pause, the possibility of an incredible discovery begins to grow, because the story of the 1963 one dime worth $41 million does not end with the coin itself. It expands into a much larger mystery about how ordinary objects sometimes hide extraordinary value in the most unexpected ways. And collectors who have spent decades studying rare coins often say that the greatest treasures are not always the ones people intentionally collect, but the ones that quietly survive in everyday circulation for years before anyone realizes what they truly are. And that is exactly what makes coins like the 1963 dime so fascinating, because they were created during a time when millions of identical coins were being produced rapidly, each one expected to serve a simple purpose in daily transactions. Yet hidden within that massive production, there is always the possibility that something unusual happened for a brief moment at the mint, a tiny event that could transform an ordinary coin into something completely unique. And when collectors imagine a 1963 dime reaching a value of $41 million, they are imagining the rarest combination of factors possible. A coin that may have been struck under unusual conditions, preserved in extraordinary condition, and discovered decades later when collectors understand its rarity and importance, and those factors together can create the kind of excitement that sends shockwaves through the numismatic world, because a coin like that would represent a once-in-a-generation discovery, something that collectors might talk about for the rest of their lives. And part of the excitement comes from the historical context surrounding the year 1963 itself, a year filled with important moments in American history, and also one of the final years before silver disappeared from everyday circulating coinage, which means the coins minted during that time carry not only precious metal but also a connection to an era that no longer exists, and collectors value that connection deeply, because coins are not just money but small pieces of history that people once carried in their pockets while living their daily lives. And when a rare variation of such a coin appears, it becomes more than a collectible. It becomes a tangible link to the past, something that allows modern collectors to hold a piece of history in their hands. And this emotional connection is one of the reasons rare coins can reach astonishing prices, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are acquiring stories, history, and the thrill of owning something almost no one else in the world possesses. And the 1963 dime already holds an important place in coin collecting simply because it is made of 90% silver, giving it intrinsic value beyond its face value. Yet the coins that truly excite collectors are the ones that carry unusual characteristics, perhaps a double date, a rare die variety, or a striking anomaly that sets them apart from the millions of other coins minted that year. And identifying those differences often requires patience and careful observation, which is why many collectors spend hours studying coins under magnification, slowly rotating them in the light to catch the slightest irregularities in the design. And sometimes that careful attention leads to an incredible moment when a collector realizes they are looking at something truly rare, something that may never have been documented before. And that moment of discovery is what keeps people searching through coins year after year, because even though the chances are small, the reward could be life-changing. And the excitement grows even stronger when stories emerge about people who have actually discovered valuable coins in ordinary places, individuals who found rare pennies in old jars, valuable quarters in bank rolls, or unusual dimes mixed in with everyday change. And those stories spread quickly across the coin collecting community because they remind everyone that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be found. And perhaps the most thrilling part of the 1963 dime story is the idea that such a coin could still exist somewhere in the world unnoticed, quietly resting in a small collection or lying forgotten in a drawer where it has been for decades. And because dimes are such small coins, they often receive less attention than larger denominations, which means a rare example could easily pass through many hands without anyone examining it carefully. And that possibility keeps collectors alert whenever they encounter older coins, because the next legendary discovery might appear when they least expect it. And the design itself offers many clues for those who know What to look for. From the sharpness of Roosevelt's profile to the clarity of the lettering around the rim. From the spacing of the numbers in the date to the details of the torch and branches on the reverse side, every tiny feature can reveal information about how the coin was struck and whether it might belong to a rare variety, and over the years collectors have cataloged many such varieties across different coins, proving that even modern minting processes can produce surprising variations that later become highly valuable. And when one of those coins survives in near perfect condition, the value can increase dramatically because collectors place enormous importance on preservation. A coin that looks almost exactly as it did the day it left the mint can be far more valuable than one that has been worn down through years of circulation. And this is why some collectors store their coins carefully in protective holders and climate-controlled environments, hoping that one day a rare piece in their collection might become the centerpiece of a major auction where collectors from around the world compete to own it. And auctions themselves have become dramatic events in the world of rare coins, with bidders watching closely as prices climb higher and higher until someone finally secures the winning bid, sometimes paying millions for a coin that fits easily into the palm of their hand. And these extraordinary moments are what inspire new collectors to enter the hobby every year, drawn by the excitement of discovery and the possibility that something valuable might be hiding in plain sight. And the story of the 1963 dime worth $41 million captures that excitement perfectly because it reminds people that the most ordinary objects can sometimes hold the most extraordinary secrets. And perhaps somewhere right now a person is holding a small silver dime without realizing that the tiny details on its surface could reveal something remarkable, something that might transform a simple coin into one of the most talked about discoveries in coin collecting history. And that possibility alone is enough to make anyone look twice at the coins in their pocket, because the next legendary discovery might begin with nothing more than a small glint of silver and a moment of curiosity that leads someone to take a closer look than anyone else ever has before. And the story of the 1963 one dime that could be worth $41 million continues to unfold as collectors and curious people around the world begin to understand how a simple piece of silver can hold layers of history, rarity, and hidden possibility that most people would never imagine, because coins are not just tools for buying and selling but silent witnesses to the eras in which they were created, traveling from one generation to another while quietly preserving the details of the time they came from. And the 1963 dime represents one of the final moments before a major change in American currency, when silver still formed the heart of everyday coinage and millions of these small silver coins moved through the economy without anyone suspecting that one day collectors would search for them with such excitement and determination. And what makes this particular coin so captivating is not just the silver it contains, but the idea that somewhere among those millions there could exist a single example so unusual and perfectly preserved that it stands apart from every other coin minted that year, a coin created under circumstances so rare that it becomes almost legendary. And collectors often explain that the value of a coin is not determined by its metal alone, but by the story it tells, the rarity it represents, and the demand among collectors who want to own something that few others will ever possess. And when those factors align in the right way, a coin that once circulated through everyday life can suddenly become one of the most sought-after objects in the world of numismatics. And this is why the possibility of a $41,001,963 dime continues to inspire treasure hunters to search through their collections and spare change. Because even though the chances are extremely small, the idea that such a discovery could happen keeps the excitement alive. And the process of searching itself becomes part of the adventure as collectors learn to recognize the tiny details that distinguish ordinary coins from rare ones, carefully examining the date, the lettering, the edges, and the fine lines within the design, knowing that sometimes a small difference can reveal a remarkable secret hidden within the metal. And as more people become interested in coin collecting, they begin to realize that every coin carries a journey, passing from person to person across years, and sometimes decades before finally being noticed by someone who understands its significance, and the 1963 dime could easily have followed such a path, perhaps resting for years in a jar on a shelf, traveling through countless transactions, or being passed down quietly within a family collection without anyone realizing the potential value it might hold. And that mystery adds another layer of fascination, because it means the story of such a coin is still unfinished, waiting for the moment when someone finally recognizes its importance and brings it into the spotlight of the collecting world. And when discoveries like that happen, they often create a wave of excitement that spreads quickly across the numismatic community as experts examine the coin, confirm its authenticity, and discuss the rare characteristics that make it so valuable. And collectors around the world watch closely as the story develops, because they understand that such discoveries are rare moments in the history of the hobby, events that remind everyone why they began collecting in the first place. And once a coin like that is confirmed, its journey often leads to a major auction where collectors and investors compete fiercely for the chance to own it, each bid climbing higher than the last as the value rises beyond what most people ever imagined possible for a coin so small, and the final price becomes a headline that captures public attention, inspiring even more people to begin looking at their own coins with renewed curiosity, wondering whether something extraordinary might be hiding among the ordinary pieces of change they have overlooked for years. And this cycle of discovery and curiosity keeps the world of coin collecting alive and growing, connecting people through a shared fascination with history and hidden value. And the 1963 dime stands as a perfect symbol of that fascination, because it reminds us that history often hides in plain sight, waiting patiently for someone to notice the details that others have ignored. And as long as coins continue to circulate and collections continue to be explored, the possibility of new discoveries will always exist, meaning the story of rare coins is never truly finished but constantly evolving with each new find. And perhaps somewhere at this very moment, a small silver dime minted in 1963 is quietly waiting in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten collection, its true importance still unknown, yet ready to surprise the world when the right person finally pauses, examines it closely, and realizes they may be holding one of the most extraordinary coins ever discovered. And the story of the 1963 one dime that could reach a value of $41 million continues to expand as people start to imagine how such a coin might travel through decades of ordinary life before its secret is finally uncovered. Because coins rarely stay in one place for long and instead move constantly through the hands of people buying groceries, paying bus fares, tipping waiters, or dropping spare change into jars at the end of the day. And during those countless small transactions, the coin silently records a path through time without anyone realizing that it might someday become the center of an extraordinary discovery. And this sense of mystery is one of the reasons collectors find rare coins so fascinating, because every coin carries a hidden story that cannot always be traced but can certainly be imagined. And with a silver coin, like the 1963 dime, that story might begin in the busy halls of the United States Mint, where powerful presses struck millions of coins that year, each one gleaming as it left the machine and moved into bags destined for banks across the country. And from there those coins spread into everyday circulation, becoming part of the rhythm of daily life, used by people who never stopped to wonder whether the coin in their pocket might someday become valuable. Yet collectors today know that sometimes within those enormous production numbers something unexpected occurs. A tiny variation in the die, a subtle shift in pressure, or a small misalignment that creates a coin slightly different from the rest. And when such a difference exists, it may remain unnoticed for years, because most people do not study their coins closely, meaning that a rare piece could quietly travel across cities and generations before anyone recognizes the unusual detail that sets it apart. And that possibility keeps collectors searching patiently through coins even today, because the next discovery might appear when someone examines an old jar of silver. Coins passed down through a family, or when a collector opens a forgotten envelope from a decades-old collection. And those moments of discovery are what make the hobby so exciting, since they remind everyone that hidden treasures do not always come from distant lands or ancient ruins, but can emerge from the most familiar objects we see every day. And the 1963 dime holds a special place in this story, because it belongs to the last years of circulating silver coinage in the United States, giving it both historical and material significance that collectors deeply appreciate. And when such a coin also carries rare characteristics or an extraordinary state of preservation, its importance can grow dramatically, turning it from a simple coin into a symbol of an era that has long passed. And experts who study rare coins often explain that the excitement surrounding discoveries like this comes from the combination of rarity and narrative, because each unusual coin invites people to imagine how it survived so long without being recognized, where it traveled, who held it, and how it finally came to light after years of quiet anonymity. And when that moment of recognition finally happens, the coin often becomes the center of intense discussion among collectors who analyze every detail of its design, its condition, and its minting characteristics to understand exactly why it is so special. And if a truly unique example were confirmed, the next stage of its journey might lead to a prestigious auction where collectors from around the world compete for the chance to own it, raising the price higher and higher, as each bid reflects not only the rarity of the coin, but also the excitement surrounding its story. And moments like that have happened many times in the history of numismatics, where coins once thought ordinary suddenly revealed extraordinary value, capturing headlines and inspiring people everywhere to start examining their own collections more closely. And this growing curiosity keeps the world of coin collecting alive, because it encourages people to look again at objects they might otherwise ignore, discovering that even the smallest details can hold remarkable meaning when viewed through the lens of history and rarity. And the 1963 dime reminds us that the ordinary and the extraordinary often exist side by side in everyday life, separated only by the attention someone is willing to give. And perhaps somewhere right now a silver dime from that year is quietly resting among other coins, its surface still carrying the same design struck decades ago, waiting patiently for the moment when someone notices something different about it and begins the journey of uncovering its true significance. A journey that could transform a small piece of silver into one of the most talked about coins in the world, and remind everyone once again that sometimes the greatest discoveries begin with nothing more than curiosity and a closer look at something that has been there all along.